Hi, welcome back to the FIRST.shadle podcast. I'm your host, Allison German, and I'm an intern here at the Spokane FIRST.shadle campus. This week, we have a missionary guest, John Koeshall, here to talk to us about what God's doing in Germany. If you have any comments or questions, you can look us up on Instagram or Facebook at FIRST.shadle, or you can always email us at shadle@SpokaneFirst.org. Now for the message.
We are the Koeshall family. If you guys could stand up. My family is here today. And since 2007, we've committed our lives to reaching university students in Germany. I've been working with Students for Christ now for 18 years. We have student-led groups ranging in size from 10 to 120 participants in 13 different cities around Germany. Germany is a country of 82 million people packed into an area the size of Montana. When you think of Germany, you think, or many people think of churches, right? Martin Luther and the birthplace of the Reformation. I was talking with Pastor about Bonhoeffer today, and some of you may have read that biography, right? And though many consider Germany a Christian nation, the church-attending population is aging and shrinking. Since 2020, the Lutheran and Catholic churches have lost nearly 5 million members, and the church membership in Germany has fallen below 50% for the first time ever. And of those less than 50%, only 1% are in church on any given Sunday. And many evangelical denominations are aging and closing churches as well. The issue in Germany is this. Though there are viable and healthy pockets of Christian churches, it is often too little to make a difference. The average German does not know a believing Christian or has access to a believing community of faith like yours. The universities are at the forefront of this de-Christianizing trend. Germany has over 100 cities with a college or university in it, represented by all those gray dots there. Over 2.9 million university students. University students and universities are the strategic mission field. Future doctors and lawyers, politicians and teachers, scientists and researchers are studying there today. If you can reach them, you reach Germany and you change this world. But 95% of university students have no connection to a church, and they never will. For example, one city in Düsseldorf, Germany, a city of well over 2 million people, with multiple universities, over 50,000 university students, there is one Christian group of about 40 students at that university at this point. Friends, 40 from over 50,000 students, that's like 0.0001% of the student population. And the statistics can be staggering, even mind-boggling. And it can leave a person wondering whether there is any hope at all. I'll read to you briefly from this text, Matthew 9:35, where it says, Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. And when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. And then Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out impure spirits and to heal every disease and sickness. Behind these numbers that I mentioned before, there are lost people, a lost person, someone who needs an adequate witness of who Jesus is. In this passage, we see that Jesus' first action is what? It's to pray. He commands his followers, pray. Pray for what? Pray for workers for the harvest field. We missionaries, we hand out prayer cards and send out newsletters because we want to remind you people, to bring to your attention the pressing need to pray for this project or that initiative, but always, always, always pray for workers. Friends, as I'll show in a moment, The need is so great, and we have just so few to go around. In Matthew 9:35, we see how Jesus, seeing the crowd, he doesn't despair when he sees the need. He doesn't look out and go, it's all lost. He doesn't give up hope. He doesn't just fold his hands and go, oh boy, I guess this is it, and there's nothing left to do but wait, No, he has compassion on them. He has compassion, right? Behind all those numbers are people who are lost and broken, confused, and disillusioned. The word for compassion in the Greek describes being torn up by what he's seeing. I stayed at a hotel downtown Spokane. You get off that exit and you drive up that big one-way street there. What do you see? There might be construction. But what else do you see? You see street people. You see people. You see people who are wandering those streets, lost, broken, blind. Maybe that was you in the past. Maybe not. But there are Christ-like responses in indifference. It is compassion. It is compassion. Lastly, Jesus sends out his followers to minister. Friends, I'm a follower of Jesus. You are a follower of Jesus. Look to your neighbor and say, hey, you're a follower of Jesus. There you go. Friends, we're called to minister, and that's me and that's you, right? Whether locally or globally, you are a called one. You are a called one. And this doesn't mean that you leave your job, although it might. But it is a call to radically orient your life around God's mission. It's an orientation of your life. It's an orientation of seeing this world. It's an orientation, a reorientation of goals and of values and of your purpose in this world. Friends, we're called. And it doesn't matter whether you're 12 or 13 or a kid or a teenager, or whether you're 85, you're called. Everyone is called. There's no retirement in the kingdom of God. None whatsoever. So Jesus has called you to reach out to those that live around you and to speak to them and to love them with his words and his deeds. And this is also why we establish local groups at university campuses. And I want to tell you a little bit about the life of a Students for Christ group. And there's three aspects here I want to describe to you so you know what is it that they actually do when they go in Germany and do student ministry, university ministry. The one important aspect about what we do is we form communities centered around Jesus. Friends, most people are looking for a community to belong to. Most maybe aren't looking for a Christian community, but it is also true that many, after leaving home at university or elsewhere, don't have any natural connections to a new group, especially when they arrive on the university campus for the first time. So as a community of believers, we believe in being a place that welcomes people from all walks of life to be a part of our community and our family. So from the beginning, we talk about how Jesus makes a difference for how we do live out community, that we show interest in one another, that we seek to promote the good in one another, and that we do so by following Jesus' example of loving service. At this intersection of food and fun and Christian fellowship and worship, students become Christians and grow into maturity. People like this person. She found us because of a New Year's party that some students were putting on. Church had been part of her family culture. She had been in it as a kid. But she had been deeply hurt by things that were said and done. And she'd walked away from the church and from God. But at the party, she met one of our workers and really connected with her. And she started coming to our gatherings and then to a girls' small group and Curiosity became fascination, and fascination became hope, and with hope came healing as she experienced a community committed to walking and living as Jesus did. And finally, she herself confessed her faith in Jesus. The gal to the left of the the red-jacketed girl. The other thing that is important to us, we want to raise up students in the way of Jesus. Within this context, we're very intentional about people learning about Jesus and practicing his ways and growing to become like him. This is the goal for each one of us, to be Christ-like. Whether man, woman, or child, we're all called to grow into Christ-likeness. And we do this through the practice of discipleship small groups. It is here that students experience both an invitation, so a genuine affection and welcome extended to them, but also challenge, right? We grow through a combination of invitation and challenge. The third aspect that I want to mention here is that we want to reach the campus with the gospel of Jesus. And that's probably the obvious one, right? The obvious one. Christian community and discipleship form us to be disciples who make disciples. Both as a community and individually, we're committed to regular outreach and witness to our friends and the campus as a whole. One of the ways we do this is through a thing that we call coffee to go. Well, what is that? With coffee to go, we set up a table, we cook about 3 or 4 gallons of coffee, we get out some milk, and if we're being really creative, we have some tea bags and some hot water too, because not everyone wants coffee. We got cups, we set out in a public space on the campus, and when people are walking by, I don't know what it is like for you, but if you see something that's being offered for free, you're going, what's the catch? Right? What do you try to lure me in for? But we have that there, and we do this week after week in many places so that there's a regular presence there at this location at the specific day and time. And people are walking by, and we're going, hey, would you like a free cup of coffee? Möchtest du einen kostenlosen Kaffee haben heute? And sometimes people are like, who are you talking to me about free coffee, But other times, one of the people will be brave enough, and they'll come walking by and say, oh, sure, yeah, I need a cup of coffee. And they'll come over. And so then we're pouring the coffee for them, and we're beginning a conversation with them. Hey, what's your name? What are you studying, right? Those are the first 2 questions anybody asks in university ministry. What semester are you, right? How long you been here? And then sometimes they'll say, hey, so who are you guys who are handing out? Are you guys a political party? Are you collecting donations to save the whales or something like that? What are you guys doing here? He says, well, we're a Christian community. We're just Christians here on campus, and we want to show God's love in a very practical way through this free cup of coffee. And sometimes people go, wait, that's Christian coffee? I don't know if I can have Christian coffee. Well, it says, well, this canister is Christian coffee, but this here over here, this is atheist coffee, so you can have some of this, right? So we have fun, we try to break the ice, be real people. And sometimes you get people that you see again and again and again because they're on a class schedule, so they're always walking by at the same time. And the goal is to build relationships so that after weeks and months of this, at some point someone will say, hey, I hear you guys meet. Would it be okay if I come too? It just takes time. It takes time. And so that's one of the things that we do. And another is through personal relationship. For example, this guy who Max met, named Peter, who despite being baptized as a child, like so many, Peter had left his faith behind him. And at university, he felt like life was really just going his way. He had everything he wanted, and then he met Max, a student in our ministry. And they shared many interests, but Peter was baffled that Max was also a Christian. How could such a friendly and intelligent person believe in Jesus? Even more baffling, Peter saw that Max had what he needed. He saw peace in his life. As Pastor Rob was saying, he saw that all the circumstances around it wasn't enough to fulfill him. but Max had peace. And he said, I want that. And it wasn't long after Peter gave his heart to Jesus and joined the fellowship. Or maybe Gusti, who came to Heidelberg as an Indonesian international student. He just came to faith in the year before, and he arrived on campus as a young believer, and he joined my discipleship small group, and he began growing in his faith and his understanding what it meant to be a disciple and what that calling was. And instead of hiding his faith away as a student, he began talking about his faith and outing himself in physics. He was studying physics. That led to some interesting conversations and some baffled looks. And after a while, a year went by and Christmas came around, and all those German students, they go home for Christmas. But what do the international students do? They sit there all alone on campus. And so he says, hey, I'm going to invite some of my friends over, and we're going to have a Christmas Eve dinner together. And so he had 5 or 6 of his friends come, and they did Christmas Eve dinner together, right? But then God began working on his heart, and he says, hey, maybe there's something here. I know there's other international students here who aren't going anywhere. So he came to me, he says, hey, John, I was just wondering, I was thinking of doing a Christmas for Los Internationals dinner, and I'm a poor international student, and I was wondering whether you could help fund the food if I invite 20 or 30 people over. And I said, sure, no problem. I've got churches back at home, like you guys, who support, and they give money so I can do stuff like this. So no problem, okay? So you just buy what you need, and then you kind of say, okay. So he went out and he started inviting people. About 2 weeks later, he came to me. He says, oh, John, we have a problem. You know, I know maybe this is a problem, and I probably can find money, and I could help pay for this, but 60 people signed up. There's so many people. Are you sure you can still do this? I says, no problem. I have churches back at home, and they support us so we can support something like this. I said, oh, good. Okay, good. And so he gave me the receipt. 60 people came to this Christmas for Los Internationals meal. And then he thought, wow, there's more than 60 internationals on this campus. I wonder if I spread it out on the international email email list and see who would come. And so even the international students thing on campus says, hey, I hear you doing something for international students on campus. We could advertise for you too. So they did that. And him and a number of our SFC students hosted over 100 students at this meal. And Gusti stood there, and that's him in the red shirt back there. And this is what's going on right now. And before the meal began, he said, I want to welcome you all. And I want to tell you what Christmas means to me. And then our other students scattered amongst them, and they had discussion questions prepared, and they fed them. And it led to many conversations outside of that meal throughout the rest of the year and into the second year of people wanting to talk about who this Jesus is. Friends, God is at work, and he loves students. Jesus wants to reach university students in Germany. So Students for Christ currently has 13 groups in 13 cities around Germany. And 3 of these 13 are just starting up. They're pioneer. That means sometimes there's 3 people who are trying to find a crowd. A number of these universities, this little group of people, they're the only Christian gathering for that entire campus. There is nothing else. There is no Catholic student ministry. There's no Lutheran student ministry. There's no multi-denominational student ministry. They are it. And there's dozens of these kinds of cases all over Germany that still need a group. So our big way out organizational goal is, of course, to have a group in all of the over 100 university cities in Germany. That's a lifetime task. But over the next 5 years, we want to plant groups in 10 more cities. I'm taking steps of faith here, friends. I've been at this for 20 years. You wish things would go faster than they do. But I don't know, in ministry, it always seems to be kind of the farmer job, you know? It just takes its time. The seed does not grow any faster by staring at it, you know? And it takes time, and we're stepping out there, and together with this team of 6 other young Germans, all between 20 all the way up to early 30s, they've come on board with us over the last number of years, and they're part of this team of people. And they're meeting right now. They're getting ready for a student training that's happening in a week. September 4th through 7th, we'll have 60 students from around Germany come, 70 students come for a 4-day training to get ready for the semester start. Right? So there's a team working with us on this. But we're praying that God would call students who are going to be done with their studies, who will say, you know what, I'll give a year or two. I'll take a couple years out of my life and before I start work, and I'll be a person that you can send someplace to plant a group. But God is the one who calls. And you guys can be praying with us about that. So the best way to plant a campus ministry is by raising up sons and daughters from the church who will reach people with the gospel. And some of those sons and daughters are, of course, students right from our German groups. But friends, the church is the sending community. That's you guys. You guys are the senders. I was one of you once. I was in a church in Bellingham, Washington. And God called. And the church sent me. Kristen was in a church in Wenatchee, Washington. And God called her and sent her. Who from this church is going to be the called and sent ones from this church? Wouldn't it be fun to have a missionary picture on your wall of one of you that you've sent out, raised up and sent out? Wouldn't that be awesome? But that starts here. That starts in loving and building up one another and helping one another step into ministry locally and then see where God calls you locally, globally. So this is our invitation, and I'm going to end it here because I'm going to want time. I want time for us to pray. We had a great worship service. God's doing amazing stuff here. And I want us to be able to pray. So let me give this one invite here yet. So pray with us that God would call 10 young Germans to lay down their lives for a season to help plant these groups. And of course, we have a budget to raise. And I know you guys support us through your Go Fund. And I encourage you, please give to that. You guys make it possible for us to be there and on the ground. And we were having to raise another $1,500 a month by October 23rd, which is the day I fly back. And maybe people here can help see that take place. So help the Go Fund grow so they can keep extending the kingdom of God around this world. You can see us afterwards in the lobby. But here's the thing. Today I shared stories about how people came to faith. I don't know where you're at today. Maybe you're one of those people that's on the fence. He's like, you know what? I've never stepped out in this way. I've never accepted Jesus into my heart and made this a concrete decision to give my loyalty and faith to Jesus. Maybe you come from a background like one of these students who was hurt by the church, but you find yourself here again and you need healing from that. Church hurt's real, and there needs to be healing that takes place. So maybe that's you. But maybe there's other reasons you want prayer today. Maybe you're just here and it was nothing about what I said today, but God is working something deep in you and you just want to receive prayer and have somebody pray for you up here in this front row. And you want somebody to pray with you about that, to join their faith with your faith and to pray with you about the things that God's working in your life. Maybe you want to be filled with the Spirit again, and you know you're dry, and you want a fresh touch of God in your life, right? Maybe there's other reasons too, and I just There was such a sweet presence during the worship, and I pray that that's continued. God is here. And when he's here, it would be sad just to walk out. And I would just invite you, whether it's at your seat or you're coming forward, let's spend some time in God's presence. We have the time. I'm early. Nothing's open yet. That's worth going to. Right? Man does not live by bread alone, but by the very word of God. And if you want to go out of this place touched today, come and join us in prayer. Come and meet him. Maybe he's got a surprise for you today. So why don't you stand up, make it easier for everyone. If you can't stand, that's okay. You don't need to. I just want to invite those first brave people, if you want to come up and receive prayer, just come on up. I'll be up here. I'll gladly pray with you. The pastor is here. Pray with anyone on the front row will pray with you. And I just invite you as we sing maybe something, do come up. Take this invitation. God is here. He wants to meet you.
Thanks again for taking the time to listen to our message. If you enjoyed it, we ask that you would share our podcast on your socials or with a friend. Make sure you follow and subscribe to hear new messages each week. Thanks for being a part of the FIRST.shadle podcast, and remember, it's all about living a Jesus-first life.